You're listening to the Profit Connections podcast. Entrepreneurs and franchise owners, you'll want to tune in. If you're looking to create a rock-solid business, sick of being stuck on the plateau, and ready to kick it up more than just a notch, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Sharon Galuzzo, and I believe in unleashing your full potential to create resilient, successful businesses that in turn make significant positive impacts in our world. Welcome to the Profit Connections podcast. Hi, and welcome to the Profit Connections podcast. I am so excited to bring to you today a fabulous, amazing woman who has purple hair. I have on occasion had purple hair. This is very much important to point out that we are purple hair sisters. And her name is Dr. Jill Rosenthal. We are going to have an amazing conversation today, and I look forward to her insights, the stories that she's going to tell us, and how she can help business owners be resilient, how everything that happens in our life can come back to our business. It doesn't have to be a one-to-one transfer of information. And so I'm so thrilled to have Dr. Jill here with us today, and I'm just going to read her bio. She is a retired physician, now a coach, and a best-selling author. She helps women who are stressed, overwhelmed, or stuck to release thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that are holding them back so they can thrive no matter what life throws at them. Whether it is at work, at home, or a serious medical diagnosis, Dr. Jill, has a book coming out, and listen to this, Thriving Beyond Cancer, the doctor's essential guide to emotional healing, reinventing yourself, and living life on your own terms. And that is coming out in early 2025. Congratulations on the book, first of all, Dr. Jill. That is amazing. Tell us a little more about that.
So, well, first of all, I just have to say I'm new to the purple hair over the last 6 weeks. I was supposed to be lavender, but we're working on that.
It'll get there.
But yes, so, it fits along with reinventing oneself. And I started out, I was busy physician, 35 plus years in practice, taking care of everybody but myself, and, doing lots of things I enjoyed and too many things I didn't enjoy. And then over a couple of years, a 2.5-year period, I lost both my parents. I had foot reconstruction. I was taking care of my husband who has Alzheimer's disease and had to go into assisted living. And I wound up with a breast cancer diagnosis and had surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, all of this in a 2.5-year period while raising a teenager. And, probably I'm leaving out a couple things. And something had to give. And unfortunately, part of what gave was I lost my medical career to a disability retirement. And I ended up getting certified as a coach. At first, kind of for myself to get the knowledge and self-development. But then it turned out in order to get certified, I had to do a lot of coaching. I had to log the hours, and I was hooked. And I didn't want what happened to me to happen to anybody else. Or if it did, I wanted to help guide them through it. And I'm sort of straddling two, kind of, a lot of it's the same people, but two different areas that I work with them on. And one of them is dealing with the emotional aftermath of cancer. Because there's, even after treatment, if you think you're clear, there's still a lot going on for people, and it really gets in their way. But the other is, which is more relevant to your audience, is dealing with stress and overwhelm and burnout, which, by the way, are the things that can land you in a situation, in the situation in which I found myself. And so to me, really helping other women deal with the stress in their lives so that they can love their life and their work and their relationships is important. And helping them get unstuck is important. As a business coach, people, they know what to do. They just can't get themselves to do it. And that's what I help with.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know your focus is on women. And for our conversation today, I just want to open this up. This applies to everyone. The conversations that we're having today. So if you're out there and you're like, I'm not a woman, this conversation is also for you, because
most of my clients are women, but this is universal.
Yeah.
But it just happens that a lot of my clients are women.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you talk a little bit, Dr. Jill, about the juggling, because you had a physician practice. That is a business. I mean, I know that most people come out of school, doctors and lawyers and people who do life insurance. They come out of the education knowing what to do, but not how to run a business. So can you just talk a little bit about that whole juggling of, creating the business and the stress that goes along with that, and what lessons you learned along the way?
Well, I actually, in my medical career, I did not create a business.
Oh.
I was an employed physician. I was in academic medicine for the first nearly 20 years of my career. And then I moved across the country to take another position where I was an employed physician. And that carries, its own different set of stresses. My first business that I ever started was my coaching business.
Oh, I'd love to hear what lessons you learned along the way that you were able to pull into the coaching.
That was a totally different kind of ball game. When you are employed, there's a lot of the infrastructure that you don't have to worry about, or the marketing, or, anything like that. But you also don't have, you don't have nearly the amount of autonomy that you would like. There are people telling you
so how
what
did
to do sometimes and when to do it. So when I opened my coaching business, I had to learn not only what to do, but, I had to manage myself in a different way. When you're a doctor and you're employed, I get up, I go to work, the patients are scheduled, I go, I see them, eventually I go home. But when you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, you're the one who has to start everything and carry it along and finish it. And so that's a big place where people get stuck.
Because that's a real paradigm shift to go from employee, or not that you were an employee, you might have been an employee. I don't know. Would you say that an employee?
Yeah.
So you go from the employee mindset where everything is, you show up, do your job and leave essentially, to you're wearing all the hats.
Right. Yeah. And as an employee, I was a leader. I was the local lead for my department. I had a team that I led. But it was in part leadership by virtue of the position that I held.
Uh-huh.
Right now, I'm the only person in my business, but I am a leader in various communities, both in the cancer community and in the coaching community. People come to me. Now I'm a leader by virtue of who I am and what I do, which is, it's a different thing, but you have to lead yourself.
Yeah.
And
give us let's talk about leading yourself, because every entrepreneur has this in common.
Yes. And it's tricky, right? Because everybody, we all have kind of this inner 2-year-old. David Allen, back in 1991, I started following David Allen. I went to things that he was teaching, and, he would talk about planning in advance so that, when it's time to do it, the 2-year-old just like does it. But still, that inner 2-year-old doesn't always want to do it. And people really get stuck. They have a lot of fears. Sometimes they're afraid of, reaching their goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What will it mean if this happens? Or they're concerned about, what they have to give up maybe along the way to get there, time, money, time with family, whatever. And sometimes, they can be just as afraid of success sometimes as a failure. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those things start, that mental programming starts in that 2-year-old, in that 3-year-old. Mm-hmm. And so it's buried deep, and you don't even realize what's holding you back.
Yeah, I've been doing work on myself. I have coaches. I do work on myself. I do personal development, professional development. And one of the things that I have just been working with someone is it's not 2-year-old. And when I was 7, my father died. And while I processed that as a child, I didn't realize what things were hanging on as an adult. And I realized that as a 7-year-old, I somehow put some kind of idea on, if it's really important, I have to do a good job. Otherwise, people will die.
Right. And that's
so
exactly
that has
the work.
That's just something I've been working on recently. So I totally get that stuff that gets caught in childhood can follow you along. And that's the person who's been running the show, the 7.
This is exactly what happens. Kids they're really good observers. Like, they're sponges, and they see and hear and absorb everything that's happening around them. But what they're not good at is interpreting and making meaning, because their brains aren't fully developed yet until they're at least 25. Yep. And so the meaning, as that 7-year-old, you put a certain meaning on things, and you carry that along. And the thing is, a lot of it gets carried along, not even at a conscious level, but at a subconscious level. It's, it's the iceberg. Most of it's buried under the surface of the ocean. And so that, that need to do everything perfectly, until you started doing that deeper work, you probably had no clue as to where it came from. And that's exactly the kind of work that I do with people. I uncover that stuff. And, this happens. I mean, it's not even just a matter of what gets people stuck in perfectionism. And this is a really common one, especially for women. But, one of the basic needs that we have as humans is to be accepted. We need our parents in particular to love and accept us. And so we'll do anything to get that. And so that translates often into, I have to do everything perfectly. And if I can't do it perfectly, then I'm just not going to do it, or I'm going to start it and not finish it, or, whatever. And that's super common, but it also happens, in other, in relationships. And if you're in a business where you have a team, or even if you're dealing with clients or something, or certainly in, relationships with your family members, not just your partner, but anybody and friends, is that, little things trigger us and send us right back. Remember the game Chutes and Ladders? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like you're here, like all of a sudden you're like,
Yep.
and so something happens, and all of a sudden, you're 5 years old, right? And you know, you look like you're a grown up on the outside, but a 5-year-old is running the show.
Yeah.
And then you say something and the other person is triggered. And before you know it, there are 2 5-year-olds in the room and there's no grown up in sight. And we all know what happens then. And so this is where a lot of relationships get into trouble. This is where a lot of business relationships can get into trouble. And I think it's a place where business owners and leaders can really get into trouble unless they figure out that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's really a powerful thing to make that connection, to understand that, because then it's like, oh, it's not just, it's not just this.
Right.
It's stuff that we can't even see. It's not all conscious.
It's not.
And yeah.
It's not all conscious. And the thing is that understanding it consciously isn't necessarily even enough to fix it. You have to heal it emotionally and somatically in your body, just knowing that, for you, just knowing that your need to do things perfectly, comes from your fear of losing people because your dad died when you were 7. Like, it makes sense. And you go, oh yeah, but like, unless you actually really feel that and meet that need that you had at 7, then it doesn't completely do the trick.
Yeah. You do need to get it out of your body. And I don't think people understand that we retain memories and information that we've long forgot. Our body still remembers that.
Yes. And that's how all of this stuff ultimately turns into cancer and heart disease and autoimmune disease and diabetes and a whole host of other chronic illnesses. And so dealing with, aside from, it doesn't feel good to be stressed and anxious and fearful. It's really bad for your body. It's bad for your immune system. It's just bad for you. And which is not to say that there's not a lot of kind of cognitive, like you can do a lot with reframing, right? I remember.
Can you just say what reframing is? Because it's one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah. So reframing is when you take, say, a situation or whatever, and you recognize that you have put some kind of meaning onto it. Human beings are meaning-making machines. And a lot of times the meaning that we attach is based on, what that 2, 3, 5, 7, 8-year-old put on it. And so reframing is when you decide that you're going to think about it a different way. And in order to really completely do that, that often will take that deep inner work. But, here's an example. The first time several years ago, well, I guess there's more than several, but it's getting to be more. But I remember like the first time I had to file my business tax return. And, I had used an accountant forever to do my personal taxes. And, and I realized like the business taxes were going to need to be filed. And I didn't have, it was past the deadline to give it to the accountant and he wasn't going to be able to do it. And, I was going to have to put on the big girl panties and go and do it. And, that's scary because like, if you do it wrong, then, you're going to lose your business license and you're going to go to jail and you're going to lose your whole business and you're going to get fined and, all of these other like stupid things that like will never happen. But that's what goes through your head. And so like, well, I got to do it. So I went and I did it. It turned out like the Washington State Business and Operations form is like, it's ridiculously simple. There's not even like, there's not deductions. There's like, you just put in your revenue and it's like, you're done. Right. And so the thing is, I was worried first of all, I was worried for nothing. But what I told myself was, this is me. This is the reframe. This is me learning how to do this for next year.
Nice.
Right. This is me going to the gym and picking up the weights and getting stronger.
Nice. Yeah.
And so when you have a task that maybe you're putting off because you're thinking it might be hard or whatever, if you think of it as, this is me learning how to do something.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, like now it's a positive thing, right? Because who doesn't like to learn?
I love that. That's amazing. My favorite one is technology and we're learning to be best friends and we're not. So instead of getting frustrated and angry and yelling at my computer, I have reframed that into when I have a technological problem, I am curiously amused. I'm going to find out what's wrong and I'm going to laugh all the way. That's my reframe, so I needed to get myself in a more positive place because it wasn't serving anyone.
Right. So and I love the tech. So that's not that one's not my problem. But like, here's another one, like taking something as, a challenge, but in a good, but like an opportunity, like, I know there is an answer to this and I'm going to find it.
I love that.
Right. Like I'm an old mathlete, I still have, from 50 years ago, I've got my mathlete problem books upstairs somewhere,
I'm an English major, math solve your own problems. So.
Yeah, but
the
thing
match.
is, if you decide, I'm going to figure this out, I can figure this out, then it has, it just is going to feel different.
Yeah. I love that. That's such a take home tip that the Profit Connectors can grab onto. Reframing. I mean, everything that you've said, Dr. Jill, in this interview has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. And so Profit Connectors, I have some good news. Dr. Jill has a gift for you, and I want to give her a minute to tell you about it.
Sure. So I have a PDF that they can download, and it's called Get Unstuck, and they can find it at drjillgift.com/unstuck. So it's DRJILL gift.com. And that will help them figure out the conscious part, the subconscious part. And they can also find me on my website at drjillrosenthal.com.
Awesome. So what we're going to do is we are also going to put that in our club community, which is profitconnectors.club, CLUB. That is our Profit Connectors Club. We'll have her information in there as well. And I would just like to say thank you, Dr. Jill, so much. You are amazing. You've got such a deep well of information. And my heart is just so big and happy that you are helping people get unstuck and you are helping people find those things, the invisible things that are keeping them where they don't want to be so that they can be released to do amazing, wonderful things in the world. Thank you so much, Dr. Jill.
Yeah, they are released. Actually, the name of my company is called Release It Forever.
Release it forever. I love it. Awesome. Well, if you want to release it forever, make sure that you check out Dr. Jill. And thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you. It was great.
Hey, Profit Connectors, that's it for another Profit Connections podcast. If you're ready to make moves and connections that take your business to the next level and get your gifts and resources, head over to the website, profitconnectors.club. That's profitconnectors.club and get your goodies right now.